Maya Rodriguez stepped off the transport shuttle onto the gleaming deck of the Galactic Defense Academy, her standard-issue duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a thermos of coffee in her free hand. She'd specifically requested the extra-large size because, frankly, dealing with new computer systems always gave her a headache, and she had a feeling alien technology wouldn't be any different from the mess back at her office. The first sign something was off came when a 7-foot-tall, purple-scaled alien in what looked like a dress uniform practically teleported to her side. "Welcome, honored guest," the alien declared, his voice carrying the kind of reverence usually reserved for visiting dignitaries or people who'd just discovered the cure for space plague. "I am Instructor Qualix of the Centauri Military Institute. We are deeply honored by your presence here." Maya blinked. "Oh, thanks, I'm Maya. Just here for the standard exchange program thing. Hope your Wi-Fi doesn't suck as much as ours back home." Qualix's facial tentacles twitched in what she assumed was confusion. Behind him, a cluster of other alien instructors huddled around a holographic tablet, whispering frantically in what sounded like a mix of panic and excitement. "Perhaps there has been some mistake," Qualix said carefully. "According to our records, you are listed as—" He glanced at his tablet, and his scale seemed to pale slightly. "It's command-level clearance. Cosmic Priority Alpha Prime." Maya snorted. "Yeah, that sounds like our IT department. They probably put the wrong checkbox somewhere. I'm just a cadet, dude. I literally filled out the form myself." Maya Rodriguez, age 24. Currently working a boring desk job for a small government office you've probably never heard of. Nothing fancy. The whispering behind Qualix intensified. One of the instructors, an insectoid creature with compound eyes, looked like it was about to faint. "A small government office?" Qualix repeated weakly. "Super small. Like maybe 50 people on a good day. We mostly just make sure the computers don't explode." "Well, I make sure they don't explode. Everyone else just complains when the internet goes down." Maya took a sip of her coffee and looked around the pristine academy corridors. "Nice place you got here. Very shiny. Please tell me the cafeteria has actual food and not just those nutrient paste tubes I keep hearing about." Qualix exchanged a look with his colleagues that Maya could only describe as deeply concerned but trying to play it cool. It reminded her of that time her supervisor walked in while she was casually fixing a Pentagon server that had been giving everyone nightmares for 3 months. "Of course, honored," Qualix paused. "What should we call you? Your file contains 17 different classifications, and I am not certain which is appropriate." "Maya works fine. Or Rodriguez if you're feeling formal. Honestly, I don't care. Just point me toward the nearest Ethernet port, and we'll get along great." The insectoid instructor finally spoke up, its voice a nervous chittering. "Did she just say Ethernet port? As in physical network access?" Maya shrugged. "Yeah, wireless is fine for basic stuff, but if you want to really see what a system can do, you need the hard line. Trust me, I've crashed more networks than you can shake a stick at. Usually by accident, but hey, that's how you learn." The silence that followed was the kind of silence Maya had learned to associate with people realizing they were way out of their depth. She'd heard it plenty of times back home whenever she mentioned offhandedly that she'd spent her weekend debugging the missile defense system or updating the encryption protocols on something classified. "Right," Qualix said finally, his voice slightly strangled. "Well then, Maya Rodriguez, allow us to escort you to your quarters. I believe we have prepared our finest accommodations for your stay." "Cool, thanks. Just so you know, I'll probably be up late working on whatever systems you want me to look at. I brought my own energy drinks, but if you have anything with more caffeine than battery acid, I'm definitely interested." As they walked deeper into the academy, Maya couldn't help but notice the way other cadets stopped and stared. Some of them even bowed, which was weird but kind of nice. Maybe alien military schools were just more polite than human ones. Behind her, she could hear Qualix frantically whispering into his communication device. Yes, she is here. No, I do not think she is joking. Yes, she asked about the Ethernet ports. No, I do not believe we are prepared for this. Maya grinned and took another sip of her coffee. This was going to be an interesting semester. Maya's quarters turned out to be less standard dorm room and more presidential suite designed by someone who'd watched too many luxury hotel commercials. The main room was roughly the size of her entire apartment back home, complete with what appeared to be a zero-gravity hot tub and a viewport that offered a stunning view of the nebula outside. This seems excessive, she said, dropping her duffel bag on a couch that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Are you sure you didn't mix me up with someone important? Qualix, who had been hovering anxiously by the door, made a sound like a deflating balloon. We are quite certain the accommodations are appropriate for someone of your background. My background is fixing computers and eating too much takeout Chinese food. But hey, I'm not complaining. Maya wandered over to examine what looked like a control panel embedded in the wall. Please tell me this isn't one of those voice-activated smart room things. I hate talking to computers. They never listen anyway. Actually, came a smooth artificial voice from hidden speakers. I am quite good at listening. Welcome, Commander Rodriguez. How may I assist you today? Maya froze. Commander? Dude, no, just Maya. And definitely not Commander. My apologies, the AI replied. According to my files, you hold a position of significant authority in Earth's defense infrastructure. Shall I refer to you as Director Rodriguez instead? I'm going to stop you right there, computer person. I am not a director of anything except maybe the Office Fantasy Football League, and even that's debatable since I drafted 3 players who got injured in Week 2. Qualix's tentacles were twitching again. Perhaps we should discuss your meal preferences. Our chefs have prepared a selection of Earth delicacies based on your psychological profile. Maya raised an eyebrow. You guys have a psychological profile on me? That's either really thorough or really creepy. Standard procedure for high-value personnel, Qualix said quickly. Nothing invasive, I assure you. 20 minutes later, Maya found herself in what could only be described as a food paradise. The dining hall had been cleared of other cadets, and a team of alien chefs presented her with dish after dish of perfectly prepared human cuisine. Pizza with the exact cheese-to-sauce ratio she preferred. Coffee brewed to the precise temperature she always complained about when it wasn't quite right. Even her favorite brand of energy drink, which she was pretty sure wasn't available outside of Earth. Okay, this is getting weird, Maya said around a bite of what was honestly the best pizza she'd ever tasted. How did you know I like extra pepperoni but no mushrooms? The head chef, a tall, graceful alien with far too many arms, beamed with pride. We analyzed your dietary habits from your personal files. Every meal you have ordered for the past 3 years, cross-referenced with your biometric responses to determine optimal nutritional satisfaction. Maya nearly choked on her pizza. You have 3 years of my food delivery data? How is that even legal? When someone has access to the level of classified information you possess, Qualix explained carefully, dietary monitoring is a standard security precaution. I fix computers. The most classified thing I've ever seen is the admin password for our office printer, and that's only because nobody else wants to deal with it when it jams. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of Maya's tablet chiming with an incoming message. She glanced at it and sighed. Oh great, work emergency. Mind if I handle this real quick? Without waiting for an answer, Maya pulled out her laptop and connected to the Academy's network. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she muttered under her breath about incompetent coworkers and systems that should have been updated decades ago. Let's see here, yeah, the quantum encryption array is throwing errors again. Probably because Johnson tried to run that new combat simulation without checking the processing requirements first. She typed a few more commands, then sat back with satisfaction. There we go. Crisis averted. Qualix leaned forward. Excuse me, did you just say quantum encryption array? Yeah, it's part of our main defense grid. Super temperamental. I spend half my time babysitting that thing. Maya took another bite of pizza, completely missing the way every alien in the room had gone perfectly still. Honestly, you'd think with $1 trillion budget they could afford better hardware. But no. I'm stuck debugging 30-year-old code that was probably written by someone who thought Y2000 was a myth. The head chef dropped a serving spoon, and the clatter echoed through the suddenly silent dining hall. You maintain Earth's quantum defense grid, Qualix said slowly, as part of your boring desk job. Among other things, yeah. That and making sure nobody accidentally formats the wrong server. You know how it is. Maya looked around the room and frowned. Why does everyone look like they've seen a ghost? Did I say something wrong? Lieutenant Crix was having what humans might charitably call a very bad day. As the Academy's head of security, it was his job to conduct background checks on all visiting personnel, and Maya Rodriguez was making that job significantly more difficult than it should have been. Computer, display all available data on Cadet Maya Rodriguez, he commanded, his 6 eyes focused intently on the holographic display that materialized in front of him. The information that appeared made no sense whatsoever. According to the official exchange program roster, Maya Rodriguez was a 24-year-old human female, but currently employed as a systems administrator level 1 at something called the Department of Administrative Services. Her security clearance was listed as basic personnel, non-critical. According to the Galactic Intelligence Database, Maya Rodriguez held clearance level Cosmic Alpha Prime, a classification so high that Crix had never actually seen it used. The same database listed her employer as classified, beyond authorized access level. According to the automated threat assessment system, Maya Rodriguez was flagged as a strategic asset, extreme caution required. This is impossible, Crix muttered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. Computer, cross-reference with Earth military databases. The response nearly gave him a heart attack. All 6 of them. Access denied. Subject classified under Terran Defense Protocol 77 Alpha. Inquiry logged and transmitted to Earth Security Council. Crix had been a security officer for 43 years across 17 different species military organizations. He had investigated war criminals, terrorist cells, and rogue artificial intelligences. He had never, not once, encountered a classification that made his own computer refuse to cooperate. Computer, what can you tell me about Earth's Defense Protocol 77 Alpha? Insufficient clearance level for that information, Lieutenant. What clearance level would I need? That information is also classified. Crix rubbed his temples with 2 of his 4 hands and tried a different approach. Computer, show me Maya Rodriguez's employment history. The display updated, and Crix found himself staring at what appeared to be the most boring resume in galactic history. Systems Administrator at the Department of Administrative Services. Previous employment, Junior Systems Administrator at the Department of Administrative Services. Education, Associate Degree in Information Technology from Northern Virginia Community College. Computer, what does the Department of Administrative Services do? According to public records, the Department of Administrative Services provides technical support and infrastructure management for various government offices. That sounded harmless enough. Crix was starting to relax when he made the mistake of asking a follow-up question. Which government offices? The computer paused for a moment that felt like an eternity. I am unable to provide that information due to security restrictions. Crix felt his blood pressure spike. What kind of technical support requires security restrictions? I am unable to provide that information. What kind of infrastructure management? I am unable to provide that information. What do you mean you're unable? I have full security clearance for this academy. Yes, Lieutenant. However, this information is classified at a level that exceeds Academy authority. Crick stared at the display, his mind racing. A boring government job that was classified beyond his authority. A cadet who was simultaneously flagged as the most dangerous person to ever set foot on the Academy and listed as having no security clearance at all. He pulled up the Academy's network logs and immediately spotted something that made his hands shake. 3 hours ago, someone had accessed the quantum computing core. Not just accessed it, completely rewritten its operating parameters and improved its efficiency by approximately 400%. The access logs showed the user as Maya Rodriguez connecting from her quarters using what appeared to be a consumer-grade laptop. "Computer," Crick said weakly, "how difficult would it be for an unauthorized user to access our quantum computing core?" "Impossible, Lieutenant. The quantum core is protected by 17 layers of encryption, quantum lock passwords, and biological authentication protocols. Even theoretical access would require a minimum of 15 specialists working in coordination for several months." Crick looked at the timestamp on Maya's access log again. The entire process had taken her 11 minutes. "Computer, show me what changes were made to the quantum core." The technical readout that followed was completely beyond Crick's understanding, but one phrase stood out: critical security vulnerabilities identified and patched. "How many critical security vulnerabilities were found?" 47, Lieutenant. "How long have those vulnerabilities existed in our system?" "Since initial installation, approximately 12 years ago." Crick sat back in his chair and contemplated the implications. Maya Rodriguez had casually fixed problems that had existed in their most secure system for over a decade, and she'd done it during a lunch break while complaining about the quality of their Wi-Fi. Either she was the most dangerous infiltrator in galactic history, or Earth's definition of boring desk job was significantly different from everyone else's. Given what he was learning about humans, Crick was starting to suspect it was the latter. Maya was 3 days into her stay at the Academy when the quantum computer powering the facility's main systems decided to have what she would later describe as a complete digital meltdown. Meltdown. Alarms blared throughout the complex as critical systems began failing one by one, life support fluctuating, artificial gravity glitching, and the food synthesizers producing what could charitably be called abstract art instead of actual meals. She found Instructor Qualix in the main computer lab, surrounded by a team of panicked technicians who were frantically pressing buttons with the desperation of people who had no idea what they were doing. "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" Maya asked, sipping her coffee while watching the chaos unfold. Every alien in the room turned to stare at her as if she'd just suggested they solve their problems by performing ritual human sacrifice. "Turn it off?" Qualix repeated, his tentacles writhing in horror. "Maya, this is a quantum computer. You cannot simply turn off a quantum computer. The quantum coherence fields alone would take 17 hours to safely reinitialize, and the probability matrices would need to be recalibrated by a team of specialists over the course of several weeks." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, that's what our manual says too. But honestly, 90% of the time the problem is just that something got stuck in a loop and needs to be reset." She walked over to the main console and examined the displays with the practiced eye of someone who'd spent years dealing with temperamental technology. "Mind if I take a look?" "Maya, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is an incredibly complex system that requires—" Maya was already typing. Her fingers moved across the holographic interface with the kind of casual confidence that suggested she'd done this exact thing roughly 1,000 times before. Lines of code scrolled past faster than any of the technicians could follow. "Okay, so here's your problem," she said, pointing at something that looked like complete gibberish to everyone else. "Your quantum coherence protocols are conflicting with the error-checking subroutines. Basically, every time the system tries to fix a problem, it creates 2 more problems, which creates 4 more problems, and so on. Classic cascade failure." She typed a few more commands, and the alarms suddenly stopped. The light stabilized. The gravity returned to normal. In the distance, they could hear the food synthesizers humming back to life. "There we go," Maya said, stepping back from the console with satisfaction. "Should be good for another few months, but you'll want to update the core protocols when you get a chance. This is basically the same issue we had with our defense grid last year." The silence that followed was the kind of silence usually reserved for religious experiences or natural disasters. "Defense grid," Qualix said faintly. "Yeah, you know, missile defense, cyber warfare countermeasures, that sort of thing. Super boring stuff, really. Half the time I'm just making sure the automatic systems don't accidentally declare war on Canada." Maya paused and looked around the room. "Although I guess that's more interesting than usual, come to think of it. Most days I just update drivers and restart servers that crashed because someone tried to run solitaire on a quantum processor." One of the technicians, a small, furry creature that looked like a cross between a hamster and an engineer, raised a trembling paw. "Excuse me, but did you just say you work on Earth's missile defense system?" "Among other things, sure. It's all connected, really. Defense grid, communications network, financial systems, power grid management, traffic control, medical databases," Maya shrugged. "It's all just computers in the end. And computers are terrible at doing what they're supposed to do without constant supervision." Qualix was making a sound like a deflating balloon again. "Maya, when you say you work on Earth's defense systems, do you mean you have access to them, or do you mean you actually maintain them?" "Oh, I maintain them. Me and maybe 3 other people, really. Johnson handles the West Coast servers, Patricia covers the communication satellites, and Bob does, well, Bob mostly just breaks things. But he's really good at fixing them afterward." Maya took another sip of her coffee. "Why do you ask?" The hamster engineer had gone completely rigid. "Because what you just did to our quantum computer? That same process would work on any quantum computing system in the galaxy, including military ones, including the ones that control planetary defense networks, fleet communications, and tactical coordination systems." Maya blinked. "Well, yeah, obviously. A computer's a computer. The fancy quantum stuff just means it can break in more creative ways." She looked around at the stunned faces surrounding her. "Seriously, what's the big deal? This stuff isn't that complicated once you get the hang of it." "Maya," Qualix said slowly, "would you mind if I asked exactly what kind of government office you work for?" "Sure. It's called the Department of Administrative Services. We're located in a basement in Virginia, and our official job description is maintaining infrastructure for various federal agencies. Super vague, which is perfect because nobody asks too many questions about what we actually do." "And what do you actually do?" Maya grinned. "We make sure the United States doesn't accidentally end civilization every time someone tries to update their software." The silence returned, deeper and more profound than before. Finally, Lieutenant Crix's voice crackled over the intercom system. "Instructor Qualix, please escort Maya Rodriguez to conference room Alpha immediately. We need to have a very serious conversation about what humans consider entry-level employment." Conference room Alpha turned out to be less of a conference room and more of a war room, complete with holographic star charts, tactical displays, and enough high-ranking alien military officers to plan an invasion of a small galaxy. Maya walked in carrying her coffee and immediately felt underdressed in her academy jumpsuit. "Maya Rodriguez," announced Grand Admiral Thexvar, an imposing figure who looked like someone had crossed a rhinoceros with a chess grandmaster, "we need to discuss your unique qualifications. Look, if this is about the quantum computer thing, I'm pretty sure I fixed more problems than I caused. The system was basically held together with digital duct tape and prayer." "It is not about the computer," Admiral Thexvar replied. "It is about the fact that in 3 days you have demonstrated capabilities that our best analysts believe represent a fundamental threat to galactic security." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Threat?" I fixed your Wi-Fi and made sure your food dispensers stopped serving what looked like abstract art. How is that threatening? Commander Vextar, the pompous Regelian she'd met earlier, leaned forward. Maya, do you understand that the techniques you used to repair our systems could theoretically be applied to disable them instead? Well, yeah, obviously. But why would I want to do that? You guys seem nice, and breaking things is way more work than fixing them. The assembled officers exchanged glances that Maya was starting to recognize as the universal expression for this human is either incredibly naive or incredibly dangerous, and we can't figure out which. We would like to conduct a small test, Admiral Thixvar announced. Nothing serious, just a tactical exercise to better understand your background. Maya shrugged. Sure, I guess. Fair warning though, I'm terrible at strategy games. I usually just button mash until something works. They led her to a massive holographic display showing what appeared to be a star system under siege. Red dots representing enemy fleets surrounded blue dots representing defending forces, and the situation looked hopeless from every angle Maya could see. This is a classic scenario, explained Commander Vextar. A technologically superior enemy force has blockaded a planetary system. Standard defensive doctrine suggests evacuation and strategic withdrawal. However, we are curious to see how a human might approach the problem. Maya studied the display while sipping her coffee. Okay, so the red guys have better ships and more of them. The blue guys are basically screwed using conventional tactics. She pointed at various elements of the simulation. But the red guys are using standard Confederation fleet protocols, right? I can tell from their formation patterns. That is correct, Admiral Thixvar confirmed. And their ships are using standard quantum communication arrays for coordination? Also correct. Maya grinned, and several of the officers unconsciously stepped back. Oh, this is easy then. You don't fight them. You debug them. Her hands moved over the holographic interface, and the display began to change. Instead of showing weapons fire and ship movements, lines of code began scrolling across the enemy vessels. See, the thing about quantum communication arrays is that they're basically just really fancy network systems. And network systems always have the same basic vulnerabilities. Maya highlighted several sections of code. Buffer overflow here, authentication bypass there, and oh look, they're still using the default encryption keys. The red dots on the display began acting erratically. Ships broke formation, started flying in circles, or simply stopped moving altogether. What did you do? Commander Vextar demanded. I gave their navigation systems a small case of digital food poisoning. Nothing permanent, just enough to make them really confused about where they're supposed to be going. Maya pointed at another section of the display. And I may have convinced their targeting systems that they're all participating in a training exercise where the goal is to see who can fly the prettiest patterns. The simulation showed the enemy fleet now arranged in what could only be described as a flower pattern, their ships gently spinning in synchronized formation. That's impossible, whispered one of the technicians. The quantum encryption alone would take years to break. Only if you try to break it properly, Maya replied. I just told their systems that I was running a routine software update. Computers are way more trusting than people, especially if you use the right admin credentials. Admiral Thixvar's voice was very quiet. Maya, where did you obtain Confederation admin credentials? Oh, I didn't obtain them. I generated them. Maya looked around at the stunned faces surrounding her. Look, every system has back doors for maintenance and emergency access. It's just a matter of figuring out the pattern. Like Confederation systems always use the same basic algorithm for generating temporary access codes, they just change the seed values. How could you possibly know that? Maya shrugged. Because our systems work the same way, and humans aren't nearly as creative as we like to think. Plus, I may have accidentally hacked into a Confederation communications relay last year when I was trying to fix our own satellite network. Turns out they were using some of the same frequencies, and one thing led to another. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Admiral Thexvar slowly lowering his head into his hands. "Maya," he said finally, "when you say you accidentally hacked into their communications relay, what exactly did you do?" "Nothing major. I just poked around a little to make sure our signals weren't interfering with theirs. Very polite hacking, really. I even fixed a few bugs in their system while I was there. They should probably thank me." Commander Vextar looked like he was having trouble breathing. "You fixed bugs in Confederation military systems during an accidental intrusion?" "Well, yeah, it seemed rude to just leave them broken. Plus, some of them were really obvious problems, like embarrassingly obvious. I left detailed notes in their error logs explaining what I fixed and how to prevent it from happening again." Maya looked around the room and frowned at the expressions of barely controlled panic she saw on every face. "Did I do something wrong?" 3 hours later, Maya found herself back in Conference Room Alpha, but the atmosphere had changed considerably. Instead of the tense War Council meeting she'd walked into earlier, the alien officers now looked at her with the kind of careful respect usually reserved for unexploded ordnance. Admiral Thexvar cleared his throat. "Maya Rodriguez, after extensive consultation with our respective governments, we have reached several important conclusions about your status here at the Academy." "Okay," Maya said, settling into her chair with her omnipresent coffee cup. "Should I be worried? Because if this is about the unauthorized system access thing, I want to point out that everything I accessed was technically broken already." "That is part of our concern, yes." The Admiral gestured to a holographic document that materialized above the table. "According to our analysis, your casual intervention in Academy systems has prevented approximately 47 potential security breaches, optimized our power consumption by 32%, and somehow made our food synthesizers produce better coffee." "The coffee thing was an accident. I just updated the temperature regulation protocols and the machine started working properly." Maya took a sip and nodded approvingly. "Although I have to admit, it's a significant improvement." Commander Vextar leaned forward. "Maya, we need you to understand something. The skills you consider basic technical support are capabilities that most civilizations would classify as strategic weapons." "That seems like a dramatic overreaction to basic at work." "Is it?" Lieutenant Crix spoke up from across the table. "In the past week, you have casually demonstrated the ability to penetrate any computer system in known space, that debug quantum processors that our best engineers cannot fully comprehend, and develop tactical solutions that render conventional military doctrine obsolete." Maya shrugged. "Computers are computers. The quantum stuff just means they can break in more interesting ways. And military doctrine is usually obsolete anyway. Most of it was written by people who've never actually had to fix anything when it breaks." The officers exchanged those looks again, the ones that meant they were trying to process information that didn't fit their understanding of the universe. "Maya," Admiral Thexvar said carefully, "we would like to offer you a promotion. Effective immediately, you are being reclassified from cadet to academy instructor, with a specialization in applied systems engineering and strategic technical analysis." "That sounds way more impressive than what I actually do." "What you actually do," the Admiral replied, "is maintain the technical infrastructure that keeps one of the galaxy's most dangerous civilizations from accidentally destroying everything in a 50 light-year radius." Maya considered this. "When you put it like that, I guess my job is kind of important. Although, to be fair, most of the really dangerous stuff has really good safety protocols. We're much more likely to accidentally shut off the power grid than launch a nuclear missile." "Maya," Commander Vextar said weakly, "please tell me you have never accidentally shut off Earth's power grid." "Oh no, never the whole grid. Just the East Coast that one time, and that was only for like 6 hours." Maya waved dismissively. Plus, it was technically Johnson's fault for trying to run a system diagnostic during peak usage hours. I told him to wait until midnight, but does he listen? No. And the silence returned, deeper and more profound than ever. Finally, Admiral Thexvar spoke. Maya Rodriguez, on behalf of the Galactic Defense Academy, I would like to formally apologize for any confusion regarding your clearance level. Your files have been updated to reflect your actual status as a Class Alpha strategic asset. Does that come with better parking? It comes with the understanding that you are probably the most dangerous person currently in this star system, and we are very grateful that you appear to be on our side. Maya grinned. Well, you guys have been super nice to me, and your coffee is way better than the stuff we have back home. Plus, I've been meaning to take a look at your Academy's main computer network. I noticed a few things that could probably use some attention. Every officer in the room went very still. What kind of things? Admiral Thexvar asked carefully. Oh, just the usual stuff. Outdated security patches, inefficient resource allocation algorithms, a few back doors that someone left open probably by accident. Maya pulled out her laptop. Don't worry, I can have it all sorted out by dinner. Have you guys ever tried running a full system optimization? Because I'm pretty sure your network is running at maybe 60% efficiency. As Maya's fingers began flying across her keyboard, Admiral Thexvar made a mental note to update Earth's threat assessment from dangerous but manageable to friendly but absolutely terrifying. In the distance, alarms began chiming softly as Maya's improvements rippled through the Academy's systems, making everything work exactly the way it was supposed to for the first time in decades. There we go, she said with satisfaction, closing her laptop. Much better. You know, you guys really should consider updating your installation to the latest patch. I think you're running about 3 versions behind current,